Jumpin' In on Manx Radio.
With Howard and Chris Kane.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. And here we are once again. It is a Saturday night here on Manx Radio. It is Chris, myself, in the studio for the best in modern and contemporary jazz in Jumpin' In. I am H and you are?
Chris, and welcome along to this week's show. And as the memory of a summer faded along with the glorious TT, families across the nation prepare for the annual summer trek, either to visit friends and family throughout the British Isles. Don't forget to pack a waterproof, or to fly further afield where you probably need factor 200 plus perhaps a fire extinguisher, or if you're going further than that, maybe a typhoon-ready life raft. You'd think climate change was responsible, wouldn't you, if this wasn't the typical Manx and indeed British summer. Yes, the good old weather. The only thing you can count on is that there'll be some more along in a minute. So, H, have you got the handle on some swinging water music, or is the garden singing the blues as all your fruit and veg are now below the water table?
A very good question. Well, what are we looking at? We'll be out and in with Empirical. We'll be going back for a trance with Steve and catching up with Artemis.
And for me, well, we got the blues, we're gloomy and we want more. And to start off, well, it could be the shape of things to come. Here's Prototype from Cue Some Big Band. That was Prototype from Q-Some Big Band from their debut album Dream In, recorded back in 2020. And what a great album it is too, made up entirely of a young generation of composers and players from Belgium. By the way, did we mention we went to the Dinant Jazz Festival last weekend? More of which in next week's show. When you let your thoughts run free, they say you get a broad view on what is possible with a big band. Original compositions germinate, and then a new class of composers emerge who, together with the latest generation of Belgian musicians, shine their light on the future of big band music in its absolute essence, as if in a common dream. Dream In is the debut album of Q-Some Big Band, with original works from their own ranks: trombonist Montan van Giels, guitarist Gabriel DeFranco, pianist Robbe Willems, no relation I don't think, and trumpeter Pierre-Anton Savayat, and the Q-Some Composer Hub. And there's plenty more from Belgium in next week's show.
There is indeed. Did we mention we went to Dinant Jazz Festival?
Yeah, we went to Dinant Jazz Festival.
We did, very good. And I'll just mention again, for good measure, that we will have a special next week. But a terrific time, and it has to be said, one of the largest jazz CD stalls at a festival we have seen in
fantastic
many a year. It has to be said, an amazing setup there from Mark. I think was it Mark? It was Mark, wasn't it? From in Belgium, who was there with just a small selection of his shop. As he told us, of his 100,000 plus CDs, including lots of Belgian jazz and cases of ECM releases as well. Yes, hours of happy browsing as we're listening to the music. And this one gets to the stage where you can't remember whether you've got it or not, but it's a great album in any case, going back to the early days, or relatively early days, of ECM, 1975. Steve Kuhn in amazing company, Steve Swallow on bass, Jack DeJohnette drums, and Sue Evans on percussion on an early album of his, Trance. And from that album, we're going to hear Trance. recorded in November of 1974 at Generation Sound Studios in New York, and still sounding pretty fresh actually today. It's got a sort of slight feeling of the 70s about it. Great picture of Steve Kuhn himself on the album cover, looking very late 60s, 70s in a sort of big coat and horn-rimmed glasses and such like. Already he was a player of note by the time he came to ECM in the 70s. He'd been with the Coltrane's first quartet, of course. He played with Art Farmer and Stan Getz, and Kuhn's own October Suite collaboration with Gary McFarlane had put him in the emergent chamber jazz movement. But this one, I think, an all-star lineup, as I say, and the BBC Music magazine says you could scarcely ask for a more powerful yet responsive team, whilst I think All About Jazz says it's unpredictable. Kuhn into some of his most open, direct, lyrical playing, but also as unpredictable as it is compelling, it's noted. And that's true. I mean, that one is very trancey, hence the name Trancegat, but others, I've got much more of a swingier feel to it. Either way, a great dip back into the ECM chamber music of the past, and still sounding, I think, pretty good well into the 21st century.
Not only do all ECM sound pretty good, but the mid-70s was really a purple patch indeed.
Good patch, good patch.
And he had plenty of those in this said record store. And more swingier, as you said, in other places. I like a new word when it comes along. Next from me, now the latest from Havana-born New York-based, I'm doing the same thing, pianist and composer Manuel Valera. Now, we featured him on the show a couple of times past with his quartet and last year's new Cuban Express big band release, Distancia. And in the main, his music seamlessly melds together contemporary jazz with his Latin roots. But more recently, his new album, Vessel, sits squarely in the straight-ahead modern category. The open is a real swinger dedicated to the late Kenny Kirkland. Here's Blues for Kenny. Yes, indeed. Blues for Kenny Kay is a great up-tempo number dedicated to the late, great Kenny Kirkland, who was oft-times pianist for Wynton Marsalis, who, in fact, H recently caught up with live, and lucky old him. And what a great band. John Ellis on tenor, bass clarinet and flute, Alex Norris on trumpet and flugel, Hamish Smith on bass, Mark Whitfield Jr. at the drums, and of course, not forgetting Manuel Valera at the piano and composing all the tracks, bar one, from his hero Kenny Kirkland. The whole album is a real treat. It's called Vessel and it's out now on the Crisscross label. Many thanks for them for sending us a copy.
And you're listening to Jumpin' In, the best in modern and contemporary jazz here on Manx Radio, of course, with Chris and myself, H. Always lovely to hear from you, by the way. Anytime, any thoughts, anyone you'd like to hear, feature interviews you might like to hear, or maybe hear again, who knows, or someone we could do a special on, etc., etc. Thoughts, basically. Howard Kane at manxradio.com, Chris Kane at manxradio.com, with an E on the Kane, C-A-I-N-E. And it'd be great to hear your thoughts. Artemis coming up next. Who she? I hear you all ask. Who's she? Oh, the goddess of the hunt and of wilderness and nature. Never misses her mark, which was a great name for an all-female jazz group. This is their second album. It's released fairly recently on Blue Note. It's called In Real Time. And here's a Lyle Mays number called Slink. Artemis in Real Time, their second release, 3 years after their eponymous first album, just called Artemis. The band lineup has changed on that first one. Of course, you had, I think, Anna Cohen, Cécile McClung-Salvant, the singer, and also one of my favourite sax players, Melissa Aldana. This one, they've sort of disappeared off. I suppose it's such an all-star lineup, but maybe they've just got their other projects to do as well. So now you still have the core members, Rennie Rosnes on the piano, and also a musical director as well. I think drummer Alison Miller, trumpeter Ingrid Jensen, and Noriko Ueda on the bass. And then we now have Nicole Glover on tenor sax, multi-reedist Alexa Tarantino also joining them as well, and making a very fine sound indeed on that one. 8 tracks on the album. It's out on Blue Note. To my mind, I haven't heard all the first album, but from those I've heard on this album, I actually do think it's a better album. It's more rounded. I just found the group sound is actually more cohesive as well on this one, and I'd love to see them live at some stage. Cracking band, and check it out on Blue Note. Looking forward to the third album. There's bound to be one at some stage, so check it out when it arrives. And
indeed, a great reminder of the wonderful writing of Lyle Mays, and another pianist from me now, but stylistically a million miles away either from Manuel Valera or indeed Lyle Mays. Helge Lien, no stranger to the show. We've caught up with him before in the past, and his latest release sees him enhancing his regular trio with the great saxman Tore Brunberg. The sober and perhaps sombre album is called Funeral Dance, and from it here's the aptly titled A Wonderful Selection of Gloomy Keys. Helge Lien Trio with Tore Brunberg. Helge says, music is about singing, dancing, life and death. These are the things I learned from my teacher and mentor, the incomparable Ukrainian pianist Misha Alperin. He was a big influence on me, and every time we met, he said at least one little thing that I thought about for months. He was very intense. He celebrated life and love. He sang, danced and lived his music. And funeral dance indeed reflects all those inspirations. And whilst not perhaps car music, perfect accompaniment to a quiet evening musing, perhaps over whether to open another bottle of something. Thanks to Otzella for sending us a copy.
This is Jane Ara Bloom, and you're listening to Jumpin' In with Chris and H on Manx Radio.
great stuff. Still sounding fresh and modern. Eric Dolphy's Hat and Beard from the classic Blue Note Out to Lunch album, as reinterpreted by the group Empirical on their Out and In album from 2008. Nathaniel Facey on alto, Lewis Wright vibes, Tom Farmer double bass, Shaney Forbes drums, with Julian Siegel on bass clarinet there as well, making a fantastic sound, produced by the wonderful Jason Yard. Still cracking band. I believe they've got a new one out pretty much as we speak. I know they've got several. I haven't seen them for a while. The last time I saw them, I think we were down in London. I'm just trying to rack my brains now, but it's a while since we've seen them live. But when I hear them again, I think, wow, yes, it'd be a great group to see. Always slightly changing personnel, but that one's a cracker. And yes, a new one out. I don't know the name. Do you know the name of the new one?
Yes, Like Lambs. It's just
Like Lambs, there
an
we go.
EP, not a full LP. But,
that's right. I did see that. But suggest there might be another album on the way. Fingers crossed in any case. And wonderful band. Great on the British jazz scene.
Fabulous indeed. Well, that's just about it for this week's show. Don't miss next week's show, as we try to give you at least a flavour of the Dinant Jazz Festival, although you'll have to supply your own Leffe beer. Here's a track from I Want More, the latest from saxophonist extraordinaire Donny McCaslin, who perhaps gained more popular audience after his work with the late David Bowie. But you should check out his work before and indeed after. And this latest release is a good example, with Mark Giuliano on the drums, Tim Lefebvre on the bass, Jason Linder on synths, Wurlitzer, Chris Bullock on bass and flute, Janek Zachner on additional keyboards, and McCaslin blowing up a storm at the front. Here's the title track, I Want More. But for now, this is at least it. See you next week.
Yeah, I won't have any more left beer for the time being, mind.
Bye for now.